Hi, I'm Layne Beachley and I'm going back to school with Student Edge.
Layne, what were you like as a teenager?
Well, as a surfer, I was an avid fan. As a student, I wasn't quite so into it. I started competing in year 10. And that's when I decided I'm going to dedicate myself to surfing. So up until that point, I was quite a good student. I'd really applied myself. And then when I started competing, my studies fell by the wayside and I failed halfway through year 11. And my report card basically said, lock up her surfboard, it'll amount to nothing, surfing is a distraction from her studies. I didn't know that surfing was going to become my career until I came dead last in my first surfing event. And then it made me realise it's actually what I wanted to do and I needed to apply myself to it.
I want to go back to school in a second, but you mentioned how actually losing is what convinced you that this is what I want to do. Normally you would think the euphoria of winning would go, oh, I should be doing this all the time. Well, what was it about that loss that kind of made you feel like, okay, this is my path now?
There's very few of us that do something for the first time and win and realise that's what we want to do. The majority of us start with dismal failure, disappointment and heartbreak, and then it makes you question, is this what I want to do? Do I really want to dedicate my life to pursuing this? Am I good enough? Can I do it? And when I lost in that first event, considering how much I invested into preparing for that event and then coming dead last in the first event, I knew it was from a lack of confidence, a lack of self-belief. It was also nervousness and anxiety, and all that fear just came up to a point where I just decided, you know what, I actually really like this. I really love surfing. I love competing against people, and it made me want to work harder. So if a setback or an obstacle or a challenge actually fires you up and makes you want to work harder, then you're on the right path.
Well, prior to that moment, what were your, I guess, I won't say career plans because you're a teenager, but what did you kind of see as your life being?
So my career plans all the way up to year 10 before we did work experience back then was to become a stockbroker. I had a real affinity with the stock exchange, and that's all because some of my dad's best friends were stockbrokers, and so I went to the stock exchange for work experience in year 10, and after 2 weeks there I realised I had no desire to ever be a stockbroker. Sure. It was way too stressful and way too hard. So
too much like a Wolf of Wall Street kind of life, or
maybe not that exciting.
Okay.
No, someone handed me like a check, a letter that had a check for about $10 million in it, and they said, go and deliver this to so-and-so. And I went, oh my God, you're investing a lot of trust in me to deliver this right now, and a lot of trust in the postal system to get this to that destination.
That could have been the most profitable work experience in anyone's history.
Yeah.
Also, what did the adults in your life think about your plans? And you mentioned your father and his friends as stockbrokers. When you come home and say, no, stockbrokery is not for me, I want to become a surfer, were they on board?
Well, my dad was never really a soccer dad. He was influential in my life in a way that he allowed me the space and the freedom to identify what I wanted to do. He never really pushed me anyway. He allowed me also to fail safely. I was never really judged or criticised for not making it instantly. So it took me 8 years to win my first world title. Of course, my school teachers were in the opposite mindset. You know, you've got to apply yourself and you've got to know before you leave school this is what you're going after. When I left school, I went into a travel agency TAFE course. I was working from 6 at night till 3 in the morning in an underground bar. I was surfing part-time. I was working in surf shops. I really didn't have any idea what I wanted to do, other than the fact I knew one day I wanted to become a world champion. And when I reflect back on when I lost that first event, I reflect back on the heartache that I felt. That was actually when I put that stake in the sand. I made that declaration to myself. I'm not just going to be a world champion in life, I'm going to be a world champion surfer.
When you started winning world championships or finding success, were you tempted to reach out to those teachers and go, oh, actually, or did any kind of come to you and say, oh, I'm glad I inspired you to get here, even though perhaps that wasn't the case?
Maybe. No, I've been driven to prove people wrong, but I don't like to rub it in their face. I think my actions speak much louder than my words. And so dedicating myself, and the people I really wanted to prove wrong were most of the boys that I grew up surfing with, were the critics, the harshest critics and the biggest naysayers, and the people I referred to as my dream thieves and life vampires, the ones that gave me me the hardest time. You know, they sucked the life out of me. They constantly told me I'd never make it. I'll never be good enough. You're a girl. You're not allowed to be out here. And things like that actually made me stand up and fight for what I believed in. But there was times when it was too hard. There was times when all that criticism and negativity weighed me down so much that I didn't want to do it. And I started questioning myself. I started doubting myself. I started second guessing myself. And it was those moments when I had to really rely on the honesty of my friends and family, my biggest supporters, my honesty barometers I refer to as, the people that elevated me, the people that ignited my curiosity and my passion for life, the people who brought the best out in me. Because there were days when I was, my body language spoke volumes. I was sitting down and my head slumped. I just had no passion for life, and they would, just knock me about a bit or just ask me what's going on and can I help you. And when you have the courage to put your hand up and say, I need help, I can't do this on my own, then it's amazing how many people you find around you to support you and basically elevate you and push you out back into the world and celebrate in your successes and console you in your defeats.
Well, I want to ask you a little bit more about that because, as you said, you proved the naysayers wrong with 7 world championships, but you were also living with depression at that time. When you are kind of balancing those massive professional highs and personal lows, what is it that does inspire you to reach out for that help? Like, what is that moment or series of moments that leads to that?
Well, that's the thing. When we're going through challenges, because there's so much unrealistic expectation placed on especially young people's shoulders, teenagers especially today, I feel like they don't feel like it's comfortable or normal to actually put their hand up and ask for help. It's a sign of weakness or a sign of vulnerability. But actually, vulnerability is a really empowering place to find yourself because you're in a state of acceptance, and that's where you need to be. It took me a long time to accept that things weren't okay, and that's when I'm focusing on the pain and suffering, it's enduring it, it's making it longer, it's making it harder. And so when I had depression, the second time was when I had chronic fatigue the second time, and the state of depression I was there was debilitating and disconcerting because I was in a state so deep that I was thinking of different ways to kill myself every day. And that for someone who's a lover of life, I was confused by that. But I still didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to burden anyone with my pain and suffering. I didn't want to let anyone know that I didn't have all my together. We all think that we have to have everything perfect, and people would probably look at my life today and go, well, how hard has it been for her? She's got everything. I've got a trophy room and a rock star husband and I live in a beautiful house, but man, I've had my challenges just as you have and everyone else has, and it's a matter of sharing those challenges with people who are willing to listen.
Do you see a day in the near future, or maybe further down the track, where the gap between men and women in sports, the gap in sponsorship, the gap in media coverage, the gap in pay, does that gap close?
Yes. I see that happening for sure, and I'm not going to give up on that. It's something that fuels my fire. Coming from a marginalised profession such as women's surfing, where we're up against male chauvinists, we're up against a draconian attitude, we're up against this old school belief that men dominate the water and women need to sit on the beach and watch their towels and idolise them, is well and truly gone.
Looking back over your teenage years, do you have any regrets besides letting that $10 million check go?
When I look back at my teenage years, I believe that I made my journey to the top a lot harder than it needed to be. I'm an adoptee, and for anyone that's adopted that may be watching this, we all tend to have the same belief that I'm noticing the common denominator amongst adoptees is this massive fear of rejection. You either give people a reason to reject you through your behaviour or you reject others before they can. And that doesn't make you any friends. And I did that from a kid subconsciously up until I won my 6th consecutive world title. I made my life a lot more of a struggle than it needed to be because I believed that to succeed it had to be painful. And it's not really true.
Layne, thanks so much for your time today.
You're welcome, Simon. Thank you. Cheers.
Hey everyone, if you enjoyed that video, subscribe to our channel on YouTube or find more of our stuff at studentedge.com.au.